So everyone, welcome again to Lancaster Avenue. People used to call this the Rodeo Drive of West Philadelphia. The Rodeo Drive of West Philadelphia. Now, you have to be careful because Lancaster Avenue runs like, I don't know, in a way that makes this place unique. In a way where you could get lost if you don't know where you're going, but if you go up the right block, you'll be okay. Trust me. Back in the day, anything you wanted, anything, you could come up to Lancaster Avenue and have all your needs met. And you could go up to York's and get all your clothes, go to the dry cleaners, the music store, the shoe repair shop, the wishing well, or Murray's. Right down here at 38th in Lancaster, where that empty bank is now, that used to be one of only 2 black-owned banks in the whole city. Yeah, well, there you go. There you go. All these businesses, all these shops, these places were like icons to us. You could go in, they were friendly places, you know? You could go in and sit and listen to the old folks talk. Lancaster Avenue. And it wasn't just the businesses. Great things, big things happened here. Very important people came here. Malcolm X, he was teaching right over there at Temple number 12. Martin Luther King Jr., he gave his Freedom Now speech right there, 40th in Lancaster. There's a mural there now for him, but on that day, 10,000 people were here for that speech. 10,000. And when the drug dealers started taking over, intimidating people, and they were these invisible boundaries, you know, gang territory where you kind of had to stay in your same 3 blocks or whatever, our very own Herman Rice, he decided that was not happening here anymore. He would bust down the doors standing up to the drug dealers. And he had the entire community behind him. Because you have to have the community behind you, right? We have a mural up for him too. You know, I think people see these murals, like this one right here. They see them, but they don't always know how Lancaster Avenue used to be the place to go. Now, a lot of people just pass through it, right? But back when I was growing up, we would take the trolley up the avenue to the Allen Locke School for art classes. It would be me, my brother, and my friend. We'd take the trolley up, but on the way back, we'd walk. We'd walk in the cold, the rain, snow, didn't matter. We'd walk because we'd saved up our money. I'd always save up my money so we could stop at the... What's the name of that place? There was a particular store. It was on the corner. Red and white building. They sold all the fresh meat. I can't remember the name of it. Long Acres. Thank you. Long Acres. We stop at Long Acres and we get fries. Those fries were so good. And that place was so good. I remember, you could smell the chicken a mile away. Those were the best times. Walking home and eating fries from Long Acres. And when we finally get home, my house was right across the street from the Thriftway. That was our neighborhood supermarket, y'all. That supermarket was the key and cornerstone of the food hub. My aunt worked there, and one time, my brother and I even got in trouble there. Okay, listen, we were little kids, okay? And we took just a little tiny piece of candy, and we'd wandered away from our mom, and being little kids, we didn't realize the guard had his eye on us. We got in so much trouble that day. My mom was so embarrassed. But we were embarrassed too. I never forgot that. So, on the Sundays, the Thriftway would close at 1. So we, all us kids, would go over to the parking lot behind the store and play. All of us who went to McMichael's. We would. The boys would be playing 1, 2, 3, green light, and the girls would be jumping rope. We built boxing rings like the boxing gym, out of milk crates from behind the store. Meanwhile, I developed this obsession, like I was just addicted to Snickers. So one day, my grandmother, I don't know, she was gone. She'd gone somewhere. I went to my aunt and I asked, may I please have 40 cents for a Snickers? She looked at me, she said, all right, but this is the last 40 cents you're gonna get out of me. Next time you're gonna buy your own Snickers. And because she worked at the Thriftway, she took me there and set me up bagging grocery. The next day, I ran there from school, bagged the groceries. I had enough money to buy my own Snickers with my own money I earned. And it was awesome. It was awesome. I remember the first time I made $13 in a day. And that's a lot of money for a little kid. And you know, from then on, it was like every day. Every day we'd run from school. It would be like 10 of us kids running to the job bagging. And we built this box that said, bagging is for tips. And people would throw in their change or whatever it is they had for us. I went from wanting to make just enough money to buy Snickers to making $30 in a weekend. And suddenly, I was bringing home money and food from work. It's for my family. And it was the best time. It was the best time. It was so exciting. I could buy everybody in my house something to eat and still have enough money to go buy lacy sneakers. And my brother bagged too. In fact, he bagged so much, he was able to save up $75. And with all of that, he threw me an entire surprise birthday party. I will never forget that. It was my 13th birthday, and he was just 14. And I really, really was surprised. It was awesome. He bought chicken, which my mother cooked up. He bought chips and salads. And the whole party was down in the basement. It was huge. He invited all my friends, all of his friends. So many people were there. And there was music, like back in the day music. Big Daddy Kane. Mercy, mercy me. I love that song. And everything he needed for that party, he bought from our Thriftway. And he was just 14 years old. It was beautiful. You know, and we weren't the only ones. We weren't the first generation to be making money for ourselves. The generation before us did it. Like so many things, we were doing what the generation before us did. Making money for ourselves and sharing some with our families. A lot of us around here are like family, right? So it's very easy for us to communicate. Now, there were 3 men who sort of ran that Thriftway. It was Mr. Bill, Mr. Norm, and Mr. Dave. But after a while, that grocery store changed hands. I was 13 or 14. They sold it. Okay? My grandmother and I, we were coming home from church. We had KFC from 60th and Locust. And we were sitting there, and I was eating my Snickers. And the lady, the new owner and her husband, she came over and she said, look. My neighbor ran for the fire trucks, but that building went up fast. That building went up too fast. We didn't have a supermarket after that. And it was a hard time. I mean, there'd be rats and raccoons and possums and all of that where we used to play, where we would set up those milk crate boxing gyms. And there'd be people coming out of there with stuff, and the smell meat rotting. It smelled awful. This was our community food hub. And now, instead, it was like survival of the fittest in the desert. It was a mess. Everything was a mess. A few months later, they finally tore it down. Now, if you needed your grocery, you had to go up the avenue to some place you didn't ever go. Those invisible boundaries I talked about, well, now you had to cross them or you didn't have a grocery. All the time, the fun time we spent playing, all the ways we supported ourselves with the thriftway bagging, all of that, the safe haven we had with that parking lot in back of that store, we didn't have it anymore, and you couldn't get any of that back. The next year, Officer Brenda left, and now the cops who'd played flag football with us, who built the relationships with us, all that had all disappeared. I mean, they were still around, of course, but you can live right next to someone and never really get the chance to know them well. You never really get to know someone well. There's a certain neighbor I'm still getting to know. I won't name any names. Right after a fire, the smoke disperses into the air. So everything starts to look different. Even if you can still see, the quality of light changes because you're now seeing it through smoke and destruction, right? You don't see what's right in front of you. It's kind of like nighttime when it's not. You don't see what's right in front of you quite the way it was. I remember we used to have all this light. This neighborhood has a lot of light. You can see it. You can see it through the trees. You can see it when you look up at the sky and see how high the sun is in the afternoon. And there are flowers. There are places with flowers. There are butterflies. There's places to play. Places to jump up and down. My house used to have a lot of sun. We used to get a lot of sun in midday in my house, right? Sometimes early morning, I get up for my morning prayers right before sunrise. Sometimes I want to sleep in a little longer. I always loved that feeling. Early in the morning, the sunrise is glorious. It's beautiful. And I would love to be upstairs in my house and just, it's all this light. But now, my house, that's all blocked by this new 24-story building there on 34th. My uncle, he says, there's always light. He says, I may live in poverty, but I still got my light. The light comes from other people. The light comes from within. That light can guide you. He says, Harriet Tubman, she was going through the sticks, but she was still able to escape because of that light. Maybe it was a star, maybe it was a light inside. But when you know what your light is, when you know what your light is, your great story, where you come from, where your light comes from, how can you not love yourself? Even after that fire long ago in the past, it's still hard to see my same neighborhood the way it was when I was growing up. I'm looking at it. I look at everything. I walk around and it's different. It's not the same. You see people coming here who don't look like you, and people out who do. And then there are these signs, right? These yellow signs, we buy houses. Yeah. You see them and then you don't see them. I don't know, maybe you don't want to see them. Sometimes I wonder how I know it's still my same neighborhood. Maybe it is because I say it is. Because I've been here for 37 years. It's important to stick around. We're supposed to do things together, right? We're supposed to get some momentum going. Everybody pitch in, everybody do their part. That's the way it's always been around here. But there are people still doing what the generations have done before us. Carrying on a legacy with the New Africa Center, with the MCA, or with the memorial garden that would become a whole neighborhood greenway. Never give up your claim. Never. Because no matter what it looks like, it's still yours. Now we want to know what you plan to never give up. What do you plan to never give up?